Part 125. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1244. Spicy rabbit head. Sauce rabbit legs. Spicy stir-fried rabbit. Chili rabbit. Sarala held all kinds of rabbits and ate them, her face flushed. A pair of silver blue eyes are moist, and even the tips of the long ears, which are obviously caused by the transformation technique, are also covered with a bright and thin layer of red. You obviously can't eat spicy food, but you still have to eat it desperately. Greet smiled and shook his head, pouring her a large glass of iced capybara milk. Sarah grabbed the handle of the cup, drank it down, and sighed happily. Phew, came to life. Bernard sat silently on the other side of the long table, eating one rabbit after another, sweating all over his body. Elder Fahim reluctantly tasted a few mouthfuls, then turned away and ate his tortillas and fruit. It's not that he can't eat meat. As a servant of nature, he doesn't object to hunting food and fur for his daily needs, as long as it's not wasted. But let him eat a large number of rabbits that have just been experimented with and grown a bunch of weird limbs. Whether he thought of the pain those rabbits suffered or thought of all the weird things those rabbits grew, he had no appetite at all and didn't want to touch these vegetables. Elder, eat rabbit legs, the barbarian observed his words and moved a plate of sauced rabbit legs in his direction. This is made from rabbit legs that have been cut directly and have not been cast. Fresh. Fresh. Yes. Unlike the ones that have been enchanted, these ones that have been cut beforehand are the freshest. Gretel also smiled and leaned back, letting go of the rabbit's legs. Regeneration, or cure serious wounds, cure fatal wounds, no matter which spell, it is impossible to create something out of nothing. Protein, iron, calcium, phosphorus, and various substances during the growth process are most likely extracted from the subject's body. Bernard may not know the reason, but the savage has a good tongue and can taste it. These treated rabbits are no longer fresh. How about you? The elder frowned slightly and watched Bernard grab another rabbit head, biting the bones with a crunching sound. Greet stood next to the barbarian, smiled and waved his hand. It's okay, I can eat these. It was just that some substances such as proteins were taken away and turned into new cells, and no other substances appeared. Nor were they injected with anesthetics, strange drugs, germs, or toxins. Such a rabbit is clean, has no risk factors, and is absolutely edible. He took another chopstick, chewed hard, and narrowed his eyes with satisfaction. After eating half the plate of rabbit, he suddenly turned around. By the way, where's Appa? While Greet was eating, his chopstick stopped and he turned to ask Bernard. Since he arrived in the elf forest, Appa has been playing around happily, but when it's meal time, he still often comes to eat. Especially when he was cooking, especially roasting meat dishes, if he didn't leave a portion for it, a portion twice as big as Bernard's, how could that be a big deal? Apa's big nose can knock him to the ground and roll him over. There was a slight silence on the dining table. Sarala shook his head, Bernard shook his head, but Elder Fahim said calmly. Oh, Appa is chasing that girl from the unicorn tribe. I'm afraid he won't be able to take care of you these days. Ah. Gretel opened his mouth and quickly closed it, not knowing what to say. When he tricked Appa into following him, he did say, there is a beautiful unicorn tribe in the elf forest. If he follows him, he can find a beautiful unicorn girl. But to be honest, he didn't care about Appa since he came here. At best, when he was treating the sick unicorn Philadelphia, he let Apa wander around and help receive other unicorns, and he never had to worry about it again. Which female unicorn is Appa chasing? Is the other person pretty? What is the level? Is it higher or lower than Appa? It is said that Apa has been working very hard recently. With the guidance and training of the elves, he has advanced to level 11, but these unicorns who were born and raised are also very strong. Also, it's hard for a male beast in the unicorn tribe to watch Appa chasing away his own girl, right? Will it stumble? Will it follow the rules of the herd that if you want to chase a girl, the guys will fight first? Stab it! Stab it! Stab it! In the forest clearing, Appa and a male unicorn were standing on both sides of the clearing, facing each other, with their heads lowered and facing each other. The spiral-shaped horn on the top of the unicorn's head flashes with lightning and makes a sizzling sound. An Appa has a pair of large horns 4 meters wide, with electric sparks flashing at the tips on both sides. The blue-white electric light pulled up a power grid in the middle of the big horn. Just looking at the momentum, it was much more impressive than the unicorn opposite. Obviously, after getting the unicorn horn as a reward and eating it and digesting it, Appa not only advanced to level 11, but also gained the ability to control lightning. This kind of lightning power, combined with its own physical strength and healing ability, seems to be no weaker than a unicorn who is born with the ability to control thunder and lightning. Dorsey. Harder. Hit it. In the surrounding forest, the neighing sounds of unicorns could be heard one after another. The female unicorn Appa is pursuing, named Shiloh, is a famous beauty in this tribe. There are at least 3 or 5 tribes within 1,000 miles, and a dozen young unicorns are attracted to her. However, not long after Appa arrived here, he attracted Shiloh's attention. Even if this kid can barely learn the language of unicorns. As for human language, it doesn't know any language at all and can only neigh like a wild beast. But Hero didn't mind. In terms of stature, Appa is a bit taller than the strongest unicorn in the group. Regarding the horns, although Appa's horns are not straight or spiral, the broad horns also have a different kind of beauty. In terms of abilities, Appa's healing and purification abilities are quite good. Recently, his ability to control lightning has become more and more proficient. As for fur, who doesn't have white fur? Moreover, Appa has a lot of stories. Unlike the unicorns who pursued her, who only wandered around the forest since childhood, Appa had traveled to so many places. I walked through the great wilderness, was captured by barbarians, took a boat, crossed the ocean several times, fought against those glowing bad guys, the vast new world, the magical eagle god and snake god, and the end of the big forest. The rising plateau. She has never seen anything before. She has never heard of it. She has never eaten the fruits on the plateau and the meat of monsters in the sea. As for these stories, Appa stumbles when telling them, and is not proficient in the language of unicorns. Isn't that because she is the one who speaks them? She's here to teach. Everyone is a beast running on 4 hooves, and the sounds they can make are similar. All it takes is a little teaching. The young male unicorns were angry and jealous. However, there is no way, the law of the big forest, whoever the female chooses, that is who she is. If it is a meat-eating beast, it can kill competitors. However, unicorns, the protectors, healers, and purifiers of the forest, unicorns that always appear with a kind face, do not have the option of killing them by killing them in their tribe. Fortunately, there is another law of the great forest. Males, male and female, can fight each other before the female makes her final choice. The winner is king, the loser quits and rolls dejectedly to the edge of the ethnic group. The more outstanding the female, the less likely she is to favor the defeated males. Doxy. Work harder. Hit. The young unicorn Dorsey let out a long roar, kicked the ground with all 4 hooves, pointed his sharp long horn straight ahead, and shot forward with lightning speed. On the contrary, Appa just lowered his head slowly, his broad branch-shaped horns almost touching the ground. Zi-la. There was a crackle of lightning. The spiral on the unicorn's horn hit the electric grid between the silver moon deer's horns, causing a particularly loud explosion. Lightning struck with lightning, evenly matched, and no one took advantage. Immediately afterwards, there was an earth-shaking loud noise. Silver Moon Deer turned its head slightly. The tip of the unicorn's horn hit the lowest branch on Appa's right antlers. Corner to corner, the spiral-shaped long horns are hard and sharp, while the crisscrossing corners of the branches carry a tenacity that is easy to handle. The moment they collided, Appa quickly raised his head, held Doshi's horn up on a branch, and when he lifted it up, the horn slid past its forehead. Missed again. Pity. There's no way, the antlers are too wide, as long as we move a little, our horns will be blocked. It's really troublesome. In the forest, the unicorns were talking to each other, and their gentle neighing sounds continued to sound. After Appa challenged him, he quickly lowered his head and turned his head sideways. The long horn with a width of 2 meters on one side was inserted directly into Doshi's belly. Good luck, pick up, lift up. The male unicorn, which was 1/3 shorter than the Silver Moon Deer and almost half the weight, could not help but fly into the air. Then, Appa quickly took a step forward, stood up, and raised a pair of front hooves as big as a bowl. I kick. Dorsey the unicorn flew away with a hoof mark on his chest and crashed back to the edge of the forest. The unicorns lamented. The low neighing was mixed with a particularly cheerful and high-pitched long neighing. The unicorn Shiloh was happy and encouraged the Silver Moon Deer who was pursuing her. There was another commotion among the unicorns. For a moment, a unicorn with pure white fur mixed with light blue stripes, and a transparent golden unicorn condensed on the tip of its horn, walked out slowly, lowering its horn. I am Dorn of Torrent Forest. Your next opponent is me. This sentence was said in Elvish language, not the neighing sound of a unicorn. Obviously, this unicorn is of a very high level, and its mastery of its own power has reached a level far beyond that of its peers. Generally speaking, young unicorns can only neigh and rarely control themselves to speak human language. Of course, you can also opt out. Appa let out a low growl, dug his front hooves into the ground, and assumed a fighting posture. That night, 7 or 8 elves crowded into the Outpost Research Institute. Gretel, it's not good, your Silver Moon Deer is dying. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's time for monthly ticket sprint. Asking for a monthly ticket. The target for this vote is 850 monthly votes. As long as the votes are reached, 4 chapters will be added next month. Chapter 4. Asking for a monthly ticket. Thanks to @otaku_namamu for the 100 starting coin reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1245. Unacceptable. You guys are really going too far. Appa's master cured Phyla. Not only did he cure Phyla, but he also cured Ataf, Dorsey, Mesa. He also avenged Nana. In the big forest, there were so many monsters, so many the elves were all cured by Appa's master. What's the matter that we can't talk about? I know you guys, it's normal to fight for a beautiful girl, but why do you have to do it so hard? An elf whom Gretel didn't know well was walking beside the unicorn group, with a sullen face and nagging criticisms. A group of unicorns all had their heads drooped, and occasionally used their long horns to stir the grass blades around them, not even daring to snort loudly. These elves can directly understand the neighing of unicorns, and they cannot talk behind their backs. More elves walked in 2 circles, guarding 2 huge rattan beds. Soft rattans crisscrossed each other, carrying a horribly injured unicorn and an even more horribly injured Silver Moon Deer, leaving them suspended in mid-air. Little bits of light emerged from the fingers of the elves, falling on the unicorns and Silver Moon Deer, hanging their lives and stopping their bleeding. As for more serious injuries, they need to be handled by professional therapists. Professional healers arrived quickly. Elder Fahim carried Greet, followed by Anari Ling, and ran all the way, quickly catching up with the two teams. Elder Fahim hadn't arrived yet, but his mental power had already covered both sides of the fight. The unicorn Dorn was seriously injured, his skin was torn, his body was covered with scorch marks, and 2 of his 4 legs were broken. There was a hoof print as big as a bowl of ocean on his abdomen, which was deeply sunk, and his internal organs seemed to have moved. Even the horn was scorched black, and the skin at the root was damaged and cracked. It looked like the internal structure had been completely burned away due to excessive lightning. If the horn wasn't firmly attached to the skull, it might be possible to break it off directly. But no matter what, these injuries didn't even require him to take action himself. The elder shouted in a low voice, "Anari, go handle it." He carried Gretel and ran to Appa, his thick eyebrows already furrowed. Appa's situation is much worse than Dorn the unicorn. If Dorn's skin was just torn apart, then Appa's body was healed and then torn apart, and healed again, until it was no longer able to heal. If 2 of Dorn's 4 legs were broken, then Appa's 2 front legs were twisted out of shape, and his left hind leg also had an unnatural bend. If Dorn was kicked hard in the abdomen, then Appa had a deep wound on his chest in addition to the laceration on his abdomen. It was a black hole with no bottom, and it looked like it had been stabbed deeply by a horn. And what's even worse is, Apa, Gretel was carried all the way over by the elder. As soon as his feet landed on the ground, he rushed towards Appa. After taking 2 steps, he suddenly stopped, raised his oak staff and thrust it into the ground. Fully automatic scanning and diagnosis, start. Dual core mode. ECG monitoring, automatically fly out. The blood pressure monitor flies out automatically. A pendant hangs next to Appa, and the levitation technique holds the silver moon deer, slowly turning in a circle between the pendant and the oak staff. A small translucent snake rose from the top of the oak staff and rushed directly into Appa's body. Then he patted the space bag casually, and one engine landed on the ground, and rushed over with a knife. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" There was shouting and shouting all around. Cyrilla, who was following Gretel, immediately took a step forward and raised her fist. "What are you doing? Get out of the way." Her little face was tense and filled with murderous intent. "That's Appa. It's Appa." Although it was just a silver moon deer, nominally Bernard's mount, Appa had been with them for such a long time and was their close companion. If that unicorn hadn't been seriously injured and hung there half dead, she would have gone up and beaten him. The silver dragon girl shouted angrily, and the power of the dragon burst out naturally. The surrounding elves and unicorns were caught off guard and all fell back. Then, I saw the golden skeleton rushing to Appa's side, raising the knife. He didn't attack, he just lay on its belly and tried to shave it. The silver white hair fell down, and there was a loud sighing sound around Gretel. "Celera, cure fatal injuries. Leave the rest to me." "Okay." Cyrilla raised her hand, and abundant white light fell one after another to maintain Apa's vital signs. Gretel watched one engine finish shaving his hair, and when he went up for a B ultrasound, many healing techniques had been activated one by one under the guidance of the oak staff. The bleeding was stopped, the skin was healed, and a few branches sprouted, coming to help Appa straighten his twisted leg bones. X-rays and spiral CT scans were taken just now. These relatively simple treatments can be left to the oak staff. You are already a mature oak staff and can fully undertake the treatment work on your own. What's more, my meditation core is open to you, and I have also given you a copy of my core spells, such as healing power. You can call on natural power on your own, and there is no problem of not being able to release healing spells. The oak staff did not disappoint him, and bits and pieces of healing spells fell on Appa. Gretel was able to focus on Apa's chest and abdomen. Well, the spiral horn pierced the chest wall and penetrated deeply into the chest cavity. Fortunately, the person who helped remove the horn did a good job and put a force field on it, preventing it from becoming an open pneumothorax. The next step is to check whether there is anything wrong with the heart, whether there is any damage to the cardiovascular system, the lungs, and the mediastinum, one by one. Gretel raised his hand and opened the mage's cabin, the emergency operating room, including him, Appa, Elder Fahim, and Cyrilla. Then he patted the space bag again, and 6 dark golden skeletons appeared at the same time, working with Aonyejin to transport Appa to the operating table. Chest surgery. Pleural effusion drainage. Bronchial repair, tracheal repair, pulmonary vascular repair, alveolar repair, mediastinum restoration, mediastinum repair. Rib reduction, healing. Abdominal surgery. Intestinal repair. Repair of other organs. Drainage of abdominal effusion. Greet has done this series of surgeries very skillfully. With the assistance of 7 skeletons, oak staffs, and Cyrilla, either manipulating vines or releasing healing techniques through the chest and abdomen, it took less than an hour for all the treatments to be completed. Then, he looked at Appa, who was unconscious on the operating table, with muscles twitching and electric currents pulsing in his horns, and fell into silence. You can see it too, right? Elder Fahim walked slowly to his side, looked at the unconscious silver moon deer, and spoke slowly. These physical injuries are easy to treat, and they are not a problem for us. But these are not the troubles now. The most important injuries on Appa's body are not these. I know. Greet let out a long sigh, pulled a floating saucer and sat down, his brows knitted into a tight knot. When he released the healing technique before, he felt that there was a force in Appa's body resisting his healing technique. Like the power of lightning, like Appa's instinctive healing technique, or like a more complex and richer power. Not only did it resist his treatment, but it also ran around in Appa's body, destroying everything it could. It is physical strength, but also magic power. It is magic power that has lost its restraint and is raging like a flood in the body. The question is, how does magic exist in the body and how does it operate in various places in the body? He hasn't done any research. His own magic power can basically be used whenever he wants, and there is no running route like the Chi meridians, the 12 regular meridians, the 8 extraordinary meridians, or the Danshan. Even if he has studied how the power of Warcraft is stored, how to use it, and how to restrain it, he has not studied it. He doesn't usually study hard, and he doesn't even have to hold him for a while. His previous communication with Appa was limited to what to eat, what to drink, and where to play. Today, he can't come back from playing in the forest. Appa. Gretel spread out his arms, hugged the silver moon deer's big head, and put his forehead against it. I usually don't think much about it, I just take Appa's existence as a matter of course. Even after my level rises, I need it less and less to take care of me. It wasn't until he was about to lose it that he discovered that the gentle Appa, the loyal Appa, the Appa who would take him to the seabed cave to eat flowers, the Appa who would still listen to his words and stop despite being extremely angry, the Appa who would work hard to cultivate and become the little Appa. It is not just a mount, it is my good friend and an indispensable member of my side. Try it, cover its body with spiritual power, guide and restrain its power, Elder Fahim said softly. Gretel perked up and immediately backed away as if grasping a life-saving straw. Sit upright, put your hands flat on your knees, close your eyes, and expand your mental power. Well, it's so messy. Use spiritual power to touch these magic powers, and the feeling becomes more delicate and profound. The magic power in Appa's body is divided into 3 different properties, with at least 70 or 80 strands, clashing left and right in Silver Moon Deer's body. The power of lightning nature, the power of healing nature, the power of purification nature, and a more obscure but higher nature power are constantly colliding. With each collision, Appa's body trembled slightly. Sometimes, these forces explode close to blood vessels and can even damage them, causing new internal bleeding. Gretel had to use spiritual threads to weave a barrier, piece by piece, to separate them. Then weave them into veins, comb them carefully, guide, bind, and wander among fixed lines. However, these guidance and restraints cannot last long, and Gretel's mental power cannot stay in Appia's body forever. Gretel combed through it patiently, and soon made a new discovery near Appia's sternum. Elder, Appia's core of power, collapsed. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's time for monthly ticket sprint. Asking for a monthly ticket. The target for this vote is 850 monthly votes. As long as the votes are reached, 4 chapters will be added next month. Chapter 4. Asking for a monthly ticket. 177 votes have been cast now. Thanks to @Scarlacy for the 700 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1246. Unlike humans, the magic power of Warcraft often exists in the form of magic core. This is the conclusion Gretel came to after treating various monsters on a large scale in the elf forest. Before, in Nevis, it was impossible to get it out by just eating. The corpses of the monsters brought to him had been processed, and the magic core was always removed. Part of this magical core appears in the form of organs, or in other words, the magical power attaches to the organs and transforms them. The most common examples are the thick skin and tusks of the iron boar, and the horn of the unicorn. The other part will condense in the body of the monster to form some kind of physical substance. The most common one is magic crystal. In the process of treating the monsters, Greed saw magic condensation of different shapes and sizes in various parts of their bodies. An Appa. Such condensation of magic power once existed, behind the manubrium of the sternum and in the upper part of the anterior mediastinum. It was swirling at first, and then gradually solidified. After eating a unicorn horn, the magic power had formed a substantial structure. Using secret vision to scan, the mass of power turned into substance, relying on the sternum manubrium, shimmered with majestic life force, and at the same time, there was electric light rushing inside. But all this is gone now. The substantial structure collapsed, shattered, and exploded, tearing the back of the sternum into a mess. Fortunately, it instinctively protected its heart, preventing the cardiovascular system from being torn apart. However, if you protect the heart, you cannot protect other unimportant parts. Gretel used secret vision to observe carefully. The bright light on Appia's chest was now only fragmented, scattered throughout the chest, and even spread to other parts of the body. Wherever it goes, it boils and explodes, causing more damage and destruction. Gretel spent a lot of effort to restrain all these power fragments one by one. But how do you want to put it back together and fix it? Greed had no idea. He tried it, using his mental power to move 2 tiny fragments of power closer, trying to glue them together. However, as soon as the 2 fragments came close to each other and before they really merged together, a subtle explosion occurred. If Gretel had not withdrawn his mental power and even increased the package of mental power, this explosion alone would have added a new scar in Appa's body. Appia's power is not entirely his own. Elder Fahim had been standing by the side with his hands behind his hands, paying attention to the situation of Silver Moon Deer. At this moment, he softly said, "That unicorn, the unicorn he ate had a power level much higher than his own. After eating it, although he had successfully advanced, he failed to fully integrate the power of lightning with his own. As one. Now." The old man sighed and shook his head slightly. Gretel remained silent, holding the oak staff tightly and weaving his mental power into a tight net to trap the power running around in Appa's body. After everything was done, he hugged Apa's head again and put his forehead against Silver Moon Deer's forehead without saying a word. Apa, Apa. Under the insistent call of spiritual power, Appa finally moved slightly. Then, a feeble answer came from Gretel's sea of consciousness. Boss. Appa weakly opened his eyes. He rubbed his forehead against Gretel, and then nudged her with his nose. Then, he retracted his legs, bounced them, and struggled to get up. Boss, I. 7 dark gold skeletons and 14 bone hands went into battle together, turning the Silver Moon Deer's tall body from lying down to standing upright. Greet carefully removed the floating spell, and dozens of powerful mage hands came from all directions, supporting Appa's body, and released them one by one. How is it? How is it? Can you stand firm? If you can't stand firm, don't force it. Apa carefully placed his forehooves flat on the ground, feeling the strength of the support on his body loosen up little by little. Then, he tentatively took a step forward, then another step. The muscles in his legs were beating unnaturally. After taking the third step, his hooves gave way and he fell to his knees unable to support himself. Gretel quickly closed the powerful mage's hand and supported the Silver Moon Deer's body. Appa neighed softly. Hold head high. It lowered its head and stood helplessly on the spot, its huge long corners on the ground, as if it could no longer bear the weight of the 2 horns. Appa, how are you? Does it hurt anywhere? Greet rushed up and hugged its head, paused, then made a big circle and went over to hug its neck. The Silver Moon Deer snorted loudly, and it took Gretel a while to react and communicate with it mentally. Boss, I'm sorry, I've embarrassed you, that unicorn is very strong. I wanted to fight against him and try my best to advance through the level, but I didn't succeed. Apa is not very skilled in the use of spiritual communication, and he doesn't have much defense against Gretel. Along with the spiritual communication, there are also scattered pictures one after another. In the battle against the Plague Girl, Cyrilla and Gretel flew in the sky together, while Appa could only stand on the ground, standing among the buffaloes. In the cave, when fighting against the Sky Knight, Appa could only hide behind the rock wall and was basically unable to help. In the Great Forest, the elves around Gretel are getting stronger and stronger, and the monsters that treat him are getting stronger and stronger, and Apa, even his responsibility as a transportation tool, is becoming less and less. The master who was weaker than him before and relied on his protection has advanced again and again and has become stronger than him. He also wants to become stronger, he also wants to do his best and seize every opportunity. Not only did I fail, I also blew up the core and disabled myself. The frustration coming from the sea of consciousness is even stronger than the clear language. My power is gone, the power of the unicorn, my original strength, are all gone. I can't even physically, my legs are weak and my feet are soft, I can't walk, let alone carry you on my back. Don't think nonsense, you are just injured and a little weak. Greet stroked its long neck. Just heal your injuries. Let's rest for a few more days and eat a few more kilograms of meat. What kind of meat do you want to eat? I just made sauced rabbit meat today. Do you want to get you some? Or capybara meat, venison? Do we want monster meat? What flavor do you want? Apa nuzzled him gently, then arched him, leaned against him and stopped talking. Elder Fahim stood by silently, but Sarala slowly came over, touched Gretel's shoulder, and then touched Appa's neck. Don't be sad. It's just that you were injured a little. After you recover, you'll still be alive and kicking. Don't be afraid if your strength is gone. As long as you're in good health, you can still be strong. Hold head high. Apa said that the Silver Moon Deer's body looks like this. Gretel conveyed the content of the conscious communication. Without enhanced magic power, nothing will heal you. Don't talk nonsense. I will definitely find a way to cure you. Is there any way to strengthen the body? Cyrilla jumped a little anxiously. With a bang, the entire operating room shook, as if a small earthquake had erupted. If it doesn't work, I'll give you my blood. As long as you have dragon blood, it won't be a problem at all for your body strength to jump up to 2 or 3 big steps. She pulled up her sleeves, stretched out her dazzling white wrist in front of Appa, and shook it vigorously. The other hand also stretched out, the nails popped out an inch, and the edges shone with a metallic luster. Here, how much do you want? Hold head high. Appa let out another low cry. Greed stroked its long neck, raised his head to look at Cyrilla, smiled, and shook his head. Thank you, Cyrilla. Don't worry, it's not this far yet. I'll think of a way. Appa, don't panic, can you eat now? Just eat a little if you can, no matter what it is. The only way to recover is to eat enough. He comforted Appa for a while, then got up and went out. Elder Fahim followed him out. As soon as Gretel arrived outside the operating room, he immediately asked, Elder, is there any way that you can help Appa rebuild the core of his power? Yes, there is. Elder Fahim stroked his beard and said slowly. But Gretel, this method of reshaping is very costly and the success rate is not high. Moreover, regardless of whether it is successful or not, the recipient will be in pain. If you are interested, I have some notes here that you can borrow. Have a look. Thank you very much. Gretel clenched his fists. Even after staying in the elf forest for many years, Elder Fahim had only done less than 10 treatments to reshape the power core of Warcraft, and the success rate was not even more than half. As guardians of nature, they revere nature and respect its laws. When monsters fight and get injured, if you come to them and ask for help, they will throw healing spells. However, something like reshaping the core of power would go too far against the laws of nature. Generally speaking, they would refuse to take action. Unless you sign a contract with the elves and become a portable spiritual beast, otherwise, if you are defeated, you will be defeated, and if you die, you will die. Natural elimination is also part of the laws of nature, and nature practitioners will not interfere. Putting these aside, rebuilding the core of strength is also a difficult task in itself. It is necessary to gather the exploding and conflicting forces within the monsters and let them operate according to the past way or new rules. It is necessary to guide them to a place, lead them to rotate, form a vortex, and finally, in the center of the vortex, condense a brand new core. Then, if possible, if there is spare power, guide the remaining power into that core, attach to it and let it grow slowly. Greed flipped through nearly 10 manuscripts one by one, and also flipped through a thick stack of records from his predecessors. Finally, come to a conclusion. If there is a ready-made core that is strong enough and has matching properties, and it is implanted into it, those scattered and shattered forces can be naturally attracted to it and flow into the new core. If there is no ready-made core and it all depends on the healer's hand, then the success rate will be extremely low. Elder Fahim performed 9 treatments, 4 of which were successful. 3 of them were implanted with magic crystals, and only 1 was successful through his own guidance. The one time the guidance was successful, it was a mid-level monster that was cured. Its power was of a single nature and was much weaker than Appa. Elder, I read in your notes that you can implant ready-made magic crystals into monsters. Gretel closed the letter and went to find Elder Fahim. Elder Fahim sighed and nodded. Theoretically, it is possible. But in reality, the implanted magic crystal needs to be stronger than the object you are treating. It is best to be strong to a large stage, so that it can naturally attract the power in its body. What are you doing? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. It's time for monthly ticket sprint. Asking for a monthly ticket. The target for this vote is 850 monthly votes. As long as the votes are reached, 4 chapters will be added next month. Chapter 4. Asking for a monthly ticket. 386 votes have been cast now. There are still more than 400 tickets left. The last day and a half, everyone, come on. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1247. Chapter 1244 Elder, it's not good, APA has become. Ling Yai writes a song, plus update 5. Elder Fahim's original idea was for him to personally reshape the core of power for APA. As a legend, he still has a certain degree of certainty, although it may not be perfect. If the void is reshaped, to ensure 100% safety, APA's strength level may drop back to level 10, or even level 9. If a beast crystal or something is implanted. Elder Fahim touched his private collection. Unfortunately, there was nothing suitable. The closest thing in terms of strength is a tree heart, which is taken from an ancient tree that has died at the end of its life. However, if this is transplanted, some leaves or something will grow on APA's horns. As for asking the unicorns to compensate, in theory, if 2 males duel, as long as they don't use despicable tricks, they deserve whatever the outcome is. Besides, Dorn was also seriously injured, so there was no reason for his clan to pay compensation. However, what was Gretel showing him? Suspended in front of Elder Fahim is a thin gold chain with a pendant hanging underneath. The top of the pendant is slightly hemispherical, with a gold chain extending from 8 directions, enclosing an emerald green gemstone in the center. 8 gold chains extend to the bottom of the gem, forming a small golden lotus that holds the gem firmly. The gold chain is attached to the edge of the gemstone, slightly taut, but maintains a subtle relaxation to avoid scratching the gemstone. There are no traces of hammering or welding on either the top and bottom of the gold chain or the buckle at the top of the pendant. It is obvious that the magician used his mental power to shape it into one piece. But Elder Fahim's eyes did not fall on these gem holders and gold chains at all. The moment the pendant was raised in front of him, he stared at the gems in it. A gem the size of a pigeon egg, transparent, gentle and approachable. As the gold chain swayed and turned slightly, a cat's eye-like brilliance circulated. Like the soul of an animal inhabiting it, the eyes open and close, gazing at the world through the surface of the gemstone. You don't even need to use your mental energy, just standing face to face, you can feel the deep and huge power inside. Where did this come from? The elder looked serious. Power cores, or beast crystals, suitable for transplantation into Warcraft are not that easy to find. Generally speaking, it is to kill one life and save another. There must always be a monster that falls down, dies, and has its beast crystals cut out, so that another injured monster can be reborn. The teacher gave it to me. Greed spread his hands calmly. The young son of a demigod totem beast. The level is probably half-step legend. This was the reward given by his teacher after he solved the Year of No Summer incident. It was a trophy that the teacher conveniently got when he killed the demigod totem beast and obtained the beast crystal in the southern part of the New World. Just give it to his teacher. Elder Fahim breathed a sigh of relief and continued to sense the power of the beast crystal. On the beast crystal, there is no lingering resentment, no unforgettable hatred, and no blood and sin accumulated in the beast crystal that even death cannot erase. This beast crystal is quite pure in nature and contains a lot of vitality. Not to mention its nature, which is consistent with the healing power of the silver moon deer. With this vitality, it is the most suitable choice to guide and restrain the power of the silver moon deer and repair its body. The nature is quite suitable. Elder Fahim nodded slowly. It's just that this is a half-step legendary beast crystal. If you absorb it yourself, it will be enough for you to rise to 2 or 3 levels. Are you willing to do so? What's the reluctance? Greet smiled easily. He doesn't rely on this to upgrade, he does research, writes papers, and accumulates enough, and naturally a lot of gifts from the world will pour into him. It won't work if he doesn't upgrade. This half-step legendary beast crystal has always been used as an X-ray light source in his hands. It's really aggrieved. It's just a light source. Half-legendary or even legendary level magic items can be found later. So, since APA needs it to rebuild the core of power, why not take it out? Elder Fahim looked at Gretel, then at the beast crystal in his hand, and let out a long sigh. Alas, rich people, rich people. With this handwriting and arrogance, at first glance, you can see that he is a rich man who has been loved by thousands of people during his growth and has never been short of resources. Even the elves, even the elven nobles who have lived on Yangju Island since childhood, it is difficult to find such half-legendary resources for the wealthy people who spread them out casually. He nodded, stared at the beast crystal, and continued to observe and sense. Gretel simply stepped forward and put the beast crystal and chain into his hand. Elder. How? Elder, please help me. Gretel asked him for help confidently. I have never done the work of rebuilding the core, so I am not sure. Besides, the level of this thing is too high. I'm afraid that Appa can't bear it. Do I need to do something about it? Is your brain spinning now? Elder Fahim gave him a funny look. You're right, the half-step legendary crystal core is still a bit too strong for Appa. So we need to set up a few layers of seals first, and then send it into Appa's body and place it where the core of power originally was. You have never done this seal before, let me teach you. Another 7 or 8 books were thrown over. Animal skin, bark, paper, silk. From the size of half a square meter to the size of a palm, from magic rubbings to manuscripts. Greed had no choice but to summon a floating saucer, pile all these books on it, and take them to appease the silver moon deer. Apa, you need to rest for a few days. You should eat and drink. I have already taken care of your injury. In a few days, when your body has adjusted, we will perform surgery to reshape your core. Apa, why are you unhappy? Hold head high. It's not that I'm unhappy, I'm just full. Miss Sarah's inventory is too rich. Burp. Dorn the unicorn was healed quickly. Even though his energy had not yet recovered and he was still stumbling when he walked, he was quickly taken away by the tribe. There was nothing he could do about it. He had such a fierce fight with Appa, and even if Greet didn't blame him or show any hostility, he wouldn't be able to stay at the outpost for a long time. The left and right unicorns also have healing abilities, so they can just go back and take care of themselves. So, the only patient, no, sick beast, in the outpost was Appa. Eat and drink a lot every day, exercise a little, and adjust slowly. In just 7 days, I have gained weight visibly. And Gretel, although Gretel has not lost any weight visibly, he still has 2 dark circles under his eyes. In the past few days, he had read and thoroughly read several books given by Elder Fahim, and then, under the guidance of the Elder, began to manually calculate the sealing method. Half-step legendary beast crystal, considering Appa's current level, 3 seals are almost enough. Elder Fahim gave the basic direction with a smile. The first seal reaches level 17, the second seal reaches level 15, and the third seal reaches level 13. Just as it happens, level 13 is a little higher than Appa's current level, which can naturally attract its scattered power. Attached to the beast crystal. He said one sentence, and Gretel nodded. After 3 sentences, Gretel's face completely collapsed. 1 layer of sealing is already difficult, but 3 layers of sealing must be interlocked to allow the power inside to leak out evenly and stably, and must be connected to the outside to form a vortex, leading to the natural circulation of APA's power. The release of the first level seal cannot affect the inner 2 levels. So hard. Although he now has a meditation core and a biocomputer that has been upgraded several times, the biocomputer can only help you with calculations, but cannot help you list equations. How to set up the structure, how to adjust it according to the power, level, and shape of the beast crystal, as well as APA's level and power. These things all need to be calculated based on the specific situation. Greet immersed himself in the study, used up 2 inches of draft paper, and calculated the sealing plan, which finally passed the verification of the elders. He rolled up his sleeves again and simulated sealing on the beast crystal 3 times. The first time, I stumbled. The second time, basically successful. The third time, it was very smooth. This is the situation. Greed held the beast crystal in one hand and pointed at the translucent deer-shaped light and shadow with the other hand, explaining to Appa carefully. I will make a small slit on the side of your chest, and use vines to send the sealed beast crystal into your body, where the core of power was originally gathered. Of course, this beast crystal is a little bigger than what you originally condensed. But it shouldn't be too uncomfortable after you get used to it a little bit. Then, when the scattered powers around you gather together and you regain control of them, you can do it bit by bit. Click and advance slowly. Don't be afraid. The elders have confirmed the strength of the seal. I am sure of the surgical plan. As long as the implant is completed, you will be fine. Hold head high. APA lowered his head, tried his best to hold Greet's hand, and rubbed Greet's head. Silver Moon Deer's enthusiastic response came from the spiritual connection. Don't worry, boss. I will become level 13, level 15, half-step legend. I will help. I can fight. I will never let your beast crystals go to waste. While responding, she enthusiastically washed his face with saliva. Greet jumped back several meters. Don't. It makes my face sticky. The surgery went smoothly. It was just a thoracoscopic surgery to push the sealed beast crystal into APA's chest and behind the sternum, and then stimulate the surrounding tissue to heal and fix the beast crystal. Gretel could perform this level of surgery even with his eyes closed, and the battle could be over within 10 minutes. What consumes his energy is more troublesome and trivial tasks. Untie the threads of the previous mental power bit by bit, and let the previously scattered, collapsed, and turbulent abilities in APA's body flow back bit by bit and be absorbed around the beast crystal bit by bit. It took Greet a full day and night to complete this job bit by bit. After taking back all mental control, APA lowered his head, closed his eyes tightly, and fell into a deep sleep, or meditation. Only the gradually increasing and recurring strength fluctuations in the body can show that its condition is constantly improving. However, this kind of meditation lasted for 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, 10 days, and Gretel finally became calm. On the 15th day, he took a look at Appa's situation and couldn't help but rush to drag Elder Fahim. Elder, it's bad, Appa has become. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. There are still 347 monthly passes left, 347 monthly passes left. In the last 28 hours, 347 monthly tickets have been collected, and 4 chapters will be added next month. Thanks to @Red Comet Mars for the 4,000 starting coins reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1248. Appa had a long, long dream. In the dream, he was a little silver moon deer. From the few hours after he was born, he followed the herd of deer in the wilderness, staggering to avoid wild wolves. In the dream, he was a little feathered snake. Before he was born, he had been observing the world through the eggshell and listening to the sounds of nature. In the dream, he gradually grew up and became a strong stag, becoming the king of the silver moon deer herd, leading and protecting the entire herd, charging forward, and being invincible to the wolves, leopards, and black bears in the wilderness. In the dream, he was eating eggshells with relish, and a flexible tongue lovingly licked away the mucus on his body. In the dream, he fell into the hands of a group of despicable natives, was caught by them, stuffed into a cage, and transported to a very, very far away place, where he met his current owner, a young man with a very good smell. In the dream, his wings gradually changed from wet to dry, from weak to strong, and finally spread their wings and flew into the sky with a huge feathered snake. In the dream, he followed his current owner through thousands of mountains and rivers, traveling, healing, purifying, and fighting. In the dream, he soared in the forest, soared over the grassland, and glided along the air current in the valley. In the dream, different voices called him, "Apa, take me to the medical center. Apa, it's time to eat. Apa, let's go. I beg you, run." In the dream, the mountains were calling his name, and birds, animals, snakes, and insects, indigenous people, and all kinds of creatures offered him awe and worship. Kurika. Kuleka. Young son of the god of life. Bless us. Bless us. Who is he? Who is he himself? Appa doesn't know. He only knew that great danger was coming, unprecedented terror was coming. Boom. Two strong beasts collided. The muscles were trembling, electric currents were flying, and the sharp pain pierced into the chest and exploded crazily in the body. Crash, explode, tear everything apart. Boom. In the sky, thunder fell. The scorching ball of light, the blazing flames, and the invisible but extremely sharp fluctuations tore apart everything. He saw the mountains falling, the trees rolling down, the feathers covering the sky on the feathered serpent tearing apart, and blood pouring down like a torrential rain. He saw the herd charging towards the valley, he saw the trees and moss moving quickly, but he rushed into endless fire and thunder. He saw someone walking towards him. They were creatures that looked similar to the natives who worshipped him, but looked a little different. Their bodies contained a power that made him tremble. That is, human beings. Before the great pain came and his consciousness fell into darkness, his last thought was, "Humans are so strong, I also want to become a human. I also want to be human." Appa thought silently in the chaotic conflict of consciousness. I can still be a silver moon deer, and I am still willing to carry my master around, but I also want to be a human being. At a certain moment in life, you become a human. Only by becoming a human can you become as strong as those people, and can you guide the power of moonlight and lightning. Gretel sat next to the silver moon deer, stroking its neck with a look of panic on his face. Apa's 4 legs were bent under his body, and his slender neck was bent so low that it was almost inserted into the soil. Back, chest, thighs, every muscle is beating, even the bones are rattling. It was as if a pair of invisible giant hands were wrapped around its body, kneading it into a ball, roughly taking it apart, and then reassembling it at will. Pulling bones, kneading muscles, tearing fascia. What happened to it? What's happening? Gretel tried to put his spiritual power into the body of Silver Moon Deer. Different from when he was treated before, this time, his mental power felt a more chaotic and explosive change. In Apa's body, the original fragmented magic power revolved around the core of the beast crystal, constantly rotating, merging, and emitting tiny explosions. Together with its body, bones, muscles, and internal organs, they are all pulled by these magic powers, constantly trembling and changing. As soon as Greet's mental power got closer and he wanted to explore it carefully, he was either swallowed or repelled by these powers. If he wanted to figure out what happened, neither his mental power nor his experience could do it. Elder Fahim, Greet guarded Appa and did not dare to move, so he could only shout loudly. Bernard ran out to look for someone. Just 2 steps outside, there was a huge earthquake that was close to a sonic boom, and the ground shook. Sarala rushed out directly. It's coming, it's coming. Don't delay. Ouch! In a moment, the silver dragon girl dragged or almost carried Elder Fahim and ran over with a rumble. He ran closer and closer, but his footsteps were as light as one step at a time, for fear of disturbing Appa. Just stretch out one arm, support Elder Fahim, and move forward quickly. Elder Fahim was panting, his legs were swaying rapidly, and his beard was all messed up. Wait. Wait. Ouch, let me see how the little guy is doing. The little guy was spinning around in a hurry. In just a minute or two, his mental strength was almost gone. Around Apa, an invisible whirlwind of elements blew up, and it seemed like a hard shell made of elements appeared, blocking all exploration from the outside world. Inside the shell, Appa curled up into a ball, twitching slightly from time to time. His skin cracked and bleeded, but the bleeding quickly stopped and healed. This side has just healed, but there are a few more cuts there. Elder. When Greet saw Elder Fahim, it was like seeing a savior. As soon as his eyes lit up, he was about to pounce on him. As soon as the toes hit the ground, the whole person leaned forward, then leaned back with all his strength, and struggled to stop. Elder, look at Appa quickly. What's wrong with Appa? Before the treatment started, he read all the information given by the elders, discussed it with the elders, and simulated all possible accidents. Whether it was because all the scattered forces failed to be redirected back into place, or these forces conflicted with the new core, or APA suddenly started to advance again, he was mentally prepared and had a treatment plan. But now, APA's situation does not fit any of the conditions. He has never seen him like this before. Well, don't worry, don't worry. Elder Fahim first pressed his palms in Greet's direction. A wave of soft and peaceful power swept past, and Gretel couldn't help but fall back to his original position. From body to mind, he felt a lot quieter, not as panicked and anxious as before. It's okay, he thought, the elder has arrived, it should be okay. The method of casting this soothing spell is really calm and peaceful, without any anger at all. After comforting Greet, Elder Fahim stroked his white beard and looked at Appa. At the first glance, his face was slightly solemn, at the second glance, his eyes were focused, at the third glance, his eyes were slightly lowered, and his mental power quickly covered it. Ah, that's it. After observing carefully for a long time, and even circling Appa 3 times in a row, Elder Fahim finally relaxed his frown. He patted Gretel on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't worry, it's a good thing. This is a rare opportunity for Appa. He is really lucky." Greet looked at the elder longingly. Lucky? Being so painful and looking so dangerous is called luck? Apa is about to transform. The elder smiled and looked at the silver moon deer, whose muscles and bones were constantly twitching and deforming in the elemental shell. Among all the monsters, only a very small part can transform into a form with a higher level of life and closer to the original form. As long as the transformation is completed, Apa can not only quickly advance to level 12 or 13, the passage to the half-step legend is now opened. But, what will it look like? Greet was at a loss. The transformation of monsters and other things are really beyond the scope of his knowledge. What can the magical beasts of this world be transformed into? Snake turns into dragon? Tigers and leopards become flying tigers? What about the deer? What can the silver moon deer become? Kirin? Unicorn? No matter which route, the body proportions remain the same. Why are Apa's 4 legs, shoulders, and neck twitching so badly? Elder Fahim also fell silent. He observed Appa carefully for a while and then said hesitantly, "Generally speaking, silver moon deer develop in the direction of unicorns or moon god deer. But depending on Appa's situation, his transformation may be a rarer situation. What?" Gretel leaned forward, clenching his fists tightly and pressing them firmly on his knees. Bernard was breathing heavily, and even Cyrilla subconsciously pricked up her ears. A pair of membranes spread out beside her long pointed ears. What has it become? Maybe, into human form. Huh. Ah. Is APA going to turn into a human form? What kind of human form? A child? A teenager? An adult? Isn't it wrong to turn into a girl? Sarah's eyes widened, and a series of questions burst out, asking Elder Fahim dumbfounded. He looked at Gretel, who was still staring at the silver moon deer in deep thought with a worried face, and then turned to the silver dragon girl. It is unlikely that he will become a girl. After all, APA is also a stag, so he will naturally be guided and will not distort his gender inexplicably. As for whether he is an adult or a child, he pondered for a while. APA is already an adult. Generally speaking, the result of transformation will be an adult. However, if the power is not enough. Sarah glanced at Gretel quickly. Obviously, Cyrilla will never forget the scene when Gretel practiced transformation for the first time and turned into a baby silver dragon. Or, the beast crystal it transplanted came from a young monster, or it could turn into a child or teenager due to his own wishes. Is it dangerous to transform into human form? Greet's brows became more and more frowning. After getting the answer, I looked at Appa with new eyes and found that its muscles and bones were changing regularly. The limbs lengthened and shortened, the neck shortened, the skull changed from long to rounded, and the upper and lower jaws retracted, the shoulder blades, clavicle, pelvis, limb joints, every part was changing in the direction he was familiar with. Change once, then change back, change once more, then change back again. How can I help him? Elder Fahim wanted to say, you can't do anything to help him. After thinking about it and looking at Greet's anxious face, he retracted his words as he spoke. He considered it slowly and said, don't worry, Appa is a good boy and will naturally protect him. If you are worried about him, you can gather more natural power to support his transformation this time. Although the energy of that beast crystal is already quite huge, if it cannot hold on, no matter how much natural power you gather, it may not be useful. This suggestion is more of a comfort to yourself than it is to help Appa. Elder Fahim thought this, but when he saw that Greet had already drawn out the oak staff and poked it on the ground without hesitation, he stopped saying anything else. After thinking about it, I added another sentence. If you can try to establish a mental connection with it to help it stay sane, or, at least, don't let it suffer so much that it spirals into madness and confusion. Feel the process of its change, and it will be beneficial to yourself. Benefit. Thank you. Greet nodded heavily and immediately stepped forward. He half knelt on the ground, holding the oak staff tightly with both hands, and tentatively extended his mental power forward to touch Appa's consciousness. Appa. Appa. Where are you? How are you doing now? Don't worry, don't be afraid, I'm here. His spiritual power, which he thought was very condensed, still seemed extremely thin and fragile in the face of the violent whirlwind of elements, like a small boat churning on the angry sea. Fortunately, the peaceful power of nature has been summoned in large numbers, seeping into the elemental shell around Appa, smoothing its waves bit by bit, and protecting Gretel bit by bit as he moves forward. Finally, in the long darkness, a faint light flashed. Greet's consciousness was linked to a very, very far away place, a weak and already somewhat confused consciousness. It hurts so much, it hurts so much, it hurts so much. Am I going to die? Who I am? Appa. Appa, hold on. Greet struggled to pour his spirit into it. The moment the mental power was connected, he was overcome by overwhelming pain that made him twitch involuntarily. The hand holding the oak staff almost peeled off a layer of bark on the staff. Ah! Sarah shouted worriedly from behind, and as soon as her body moved, she was about to rush over and drag Gretel away. A figure flashed before her eyes. Elder Fahim had already stopped in front of her and grabbed her wrist. His old palm was as strong as steel. Don't disturb him. You can't disturb him now, otherwise, there will be problems for both of you. Sarala stopped urgently. After thinking about it, he took small steps to get behind Greet, half knelt down, spread his arms to hug him, and put his face on Greet's shoulder. Gretel felt nothing about this gentle and warm hug at this time. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and the muscles on his body were beating wildly. He just instinctively concentrated all his energy and shouted to Appa over and over again. Appa! Don't worry. Hold on, leave everything to nature. Nature will protect you. The power of nature is surging. The connection of spiritual power is like a thin thread that never goes out in the roaring waves, or like a lighthouse that never goes out in the storm. Gretel struggled to hold on. He felt the compression and expansion of every bone and the twitching of every muscle in Appa's body. The changes in the power of elements and the power of nature seemed to penetrate directly through every cell of his body. It hurt so much, so hard. How many levels does this pain have? Level 10? Level 11? For a long time, a pop sound suddenly sounded in my ears, as if my whole body was squeezed out of a dark tunnel. Greet's whole body felt light, and when he opened his eyes, he heard Sarala's joyous cry. Appa! You transformed successfully. So Appa's new form is a human-like upper body and a deer-like lower body with 4 legs? Or a complete human form? Is it a child, a teenager, or an adult? Waiting for everyone's opinions. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. There are still 100 monthly passes left, there are still 100 monthly passes left. There are still the last 12 hours. If you collect 100 monthly tickets, 4 chapters will be added next month. Thanks to @bookfriend 202220602125322547 for the reward of 10,000 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1249. Gretel only glanced forward, then subconsciously raised his arms to block Sarala's sight. Raise your arms halfway, raise your hands instead, and make a casting gesture. A cloud of darkness shrouded Appa's body, revealing only a dazed head. Behind him, Sarala snorted unhappily. What are you doing? It's not like I can't see. Greet. I made a mistake. I forgot that dragon eyes can directly see through darkness. It seems too late to get a hidden fog technique now. Standing in front of him was a little boy of 6 or 7, maybe 7 or 8 years old, a little shorter than the height he was squatting and kneeling at. The complexion is fair and delicate, and it looks like water can be squeezed out just by pinching it. She has long silver white hair, shrouded in misty brilliance, hanging down to her waist. It's a pity that the hair is not smooth, but looks messy. From the hair, 2 soft little antlers with only 1 fork can be seen. Bare shirt, bare feet, looking up at a delicate little face. The gentle almond eyes were full of confusion, staring at Gretel, her lips opened and closed. Ah, ah. Appa, you have become a human. The good news is that Appa did not turn into the form where the upper body is a human and the lower body is a deer, but instead turned into a complete human form. Maybe it has not become complete, at least it still retains some antlers, and the edges of the ears are also a little furry. Gretel poked his head again and saw a small tail, dangling uneasily. But you have become so small. How come you, a mature stag, have turned into a little baby? No, the key point is, you have no clothes on. Simply be a little younger, a 2 or 3-year-old baby. If you don't want to wear it, you can't wear it. At the age you are now, you can no longer wear it. Greet was in a hurry. Clothes, clothes, Where are the clothes? There seems to be no clothes for children in my space equipment. Can I use a blanket? My blankets are all animal skin blankets. Would APA find those blankets made of sheepskin, deerskin, or alpaca skin repulsive? What about bearskin blankets and leopard skin blankets? A blanket made of wild animal skin would make APA more uncomfortable and nervous, right? While they were circling around, Elder Fahim had already raised his hand, pulled out a grey-green elf cloak from nowhere, and landed lightly on APA. Greet quickly followed up, wrapped him up tightly, and then gently shook his shoulders. APA! APA! Ah! The little boy in front of him tried to open his mouth wide and try to speak. However, changing into a human form does not mean that he can speak human language immediately. He can only shout Abba Abba. On the contrary, in the connection of spiritual power, pitiful and aggrieved calls kept coming. Boss, boss. Don't worry, Appa, I'm here. Greet hugged him carefully and used his fingers as a comb to comb his long silver white hair. While combing, he asked, "How are you now? Do you feel okay? Does it hurt anywhere?" "No. It doesn't hurt anymore." APA's timid and cautious reply came from the connection of mental power. "It doesn't hurt anymore, it's getting better, I." He raised his hand, and the hard hooves turned into a pair of soft little hands, with a row of small fleshy pits on the back of the hands. Gretel was wondering what APA was doing with his hands when he saw his small palms clenched into fists and waved forward with all his strength. "Hi!" A small ball of light came out of his fist. It flew forward quickly, bringing with it the sound of howling wind, but Sarala raised her hand to block it. With a loud explosion, the ball of light exploded in Sarala's palm, exploding into a burst of lightning. "APA is pretty good," Sarala said in surprise. "This power is much stronger than your previous attacks. Even if it's me, I'll get hit if I'm not careful." APA's little face immediately smiled happily. He clenched his fist again, shook it, stretched his hand toward the sky, and tried to grab it. Grabbing again, my face turned red from suppressing it, my hands were empty, there was no sign of anything. "What's wrong, Appa?" I can't pull it down." Appa's voice was a little panicked. Greet smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry. What are you trying to pull off? Can you tell me?" A stream of light appeared in the chain of consciousness. One ball, another ball, and another ball, carrying moonlight and fierce flames, piercing the atmosphere and roaring down. Greet took a breath silently. Star meteor technique. Appa, you are really a silver moon deer with ideals and ambitions. Although the silver moon deer is blessed by the moonlight and is naturally connected to the starry sky, how advanced do you have to be able to pull down meteorites and hit people? Don't worry. Shocked in her heart, Gretel smiled gently. What level are you at now? Level 10? Level 11? Maybe if you advance a few more times, you can get down to level 12, 13, 14, 5. Let's not be in a hurry and take our time. Sarala and Elder Fahim also gathered around, praising and comforting. Elder Fahim fluttered his hands and released spells one after another, checking Appa from head to toe. Sarala knelt down and stroked the cloak. The cloak automatically deforms, droops, and joins at the edges, turning into a small robe. Appa twisted a little unaccustomedly, then calmed down in his robe, letting Greet tie up his hair. Soon, Greet's long, messy silver white hair was combed smoothly and tied into a ponytail. Sarala squatted next to him, touching Appa's face and his antlers. She simply couldn't take her eyes away. Greet also wanted to get him a pair of shoes, but he took out several pairs of shoes in succession and used magic to make them smaller. Appa put them on and took one step, tripped, and then took another step and tripped again. After falling down several times, I finally kicked off my shoes and started running with a splash. Oops. Ah. There were several exclamations outside the operating room. Greet and others ran out after hearing the sound, and saw several silver-white unicorns looming in the surrounding forest. The unicorn with the smoothest fur, the slenderest figure, and the shiniest horn has even walked out of the forest and stared at the child without blinking. Hold head high. Gretel looked at Appa and then at the unicorns, with a confused look on his face. Forgive him, although he has treated more than one unicorn, but he forgets about it after treating it. It is really impossible for him to identify which one is which. Instead, a tall and strong unicorn with steady steps and mottled horns slowly walked out and stood between Appa and the young unicorn. Looking back, he looked at Appa again. Congratulations, friend, congratulations on turning into a human being. Among our tribe, in hundreds of years, there may not be a compatriot who can turn into a human form. The unicorn had a soothing tone and a rich voice. However, as soon as he opened his mouth, the neighing of the unicorn stopped. It was obvious that he was very prestigious among the tribe. But, after becoming a human, can you still be with Hero? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, and ask for all kinds of. Please give me a guaranteed monthly ticket for next month. Be sure to leave it to the cat. Thanks to @Scarlacy for the 500 starting coins. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1250. What? Unicorn beauty? No, beautiful unicorn female? Greet looked left and right, looking confused. Appa fought with the unicorn this time and was seriously injured and dying. He knew why. However, a long time has passed since he ran over in a panic, stabilized Appa's injuries, and figured out a way to repair his core of power. Oh, maybe from an objective time perspective, only about 10 days have passed. But in Greet's feelings, there were ups and downs, panic and worry, coupled with the concentrated study and research. In his feeling, time flew by, as if a whole year had passed by. Why, suddenly, it has developed into Appa's emotional problems. Elder Fahim was not surprised. Unicorns, even if they are an exceptionally wise and kind-hearted group among Warcraft, they still follow the customs of Warcraft, and the strong are respected. A unicorn that can transform into a human is certainly the strongest among the strong. It is a strong person with a bright future, enough to protect the whole clan, and even enough to lead the whole clan to a further step. It's rare that this person, although it's not a unicorn, it's a silver moon deer, but a unicorn and a deer look similar. It also inherited the power of a unicorn, and it can be regarded as half of the family. Likes Shiloh. Why don't you come over quickly and ask? Ahem, don't be impatient yet. He smiled and waved to the unicorns, making a comforting gesture. Appa has just turned into a human form and is not yet skilled at it. He doesn't know many things yet. If Shiloh wants to be with him, why not stay nearby and wait patiently for a few days? The leader of the unicorns looked at Appa, who was barefoot, wearing a small robe and with a confused face, and then looked at the most beautiful flower in his tribe. Appa did successfully transform into a human form, but whether he can change back is still unknown. If he can't change back and Shiloh can't turn into a human form, it seems that the possibility of the two parties getting together won't be that high. In particular, the human form that Appa transformed into was still a human child. What if it went through any changes during the transformation process, so that it became completely juvenile? How long do we have to wait until we reach adulthood again, old enough to be with Hero? It ponders and evaluates. After a while, he lowered his head deeply, his horn almost touching the ground. Of course. Dear Elder, thank you for your advice. With the permission of the elders, several unicorns took up residence near the ancient trees at the forward post, or rather settled down, and were not in a hurry to question Appa. Gretel also breathed a sigh of relief. Take Appa back and give him a detailed physical examination. X-ray scan. Although there is no legendary level treasure, at least the ancient tree itself is legendary level, the bone shape is all normal, which is good. Sarala also followed closely. What Greet does, she does, what Greet checks, she checks. Greet turned on detect magic and read it from top to bottom, and she followed suit. What's normal? His bones are broken. Where? Greet was startled. Broken? Where is it broken? He didn't see it just now? Could it be that he didn't look carefully enough and didn't notice the broken bones? This is a taboo for doctors. This kind of omission will cause great damage to Appa's safety and health. Here, Sarala confidently stretched out her finger and lightly stroked Appa's arm. The lower end of the humerus, the upper end of the radius, the lower end of the femur, the upper end of the tibia. Here, here, look, you can see the transparent light strip here, isn't it broken? Following her fingers, Appa also lowered his head and looked at his arms and legs. Raise your hands, raise your legs, move left, move right, with a face full of tension and confusion. Broken? It's not broken. I know what it feels like to have a broken arm or leg. Although it was broken once during a fight before, it has been cured. When I turned into a human form later, I felt normal. I could walk, run, and jump without any severe pain or limping. Gretel also looked over. As soon as he saw where Sarala was pointing, he breathed a sigh of relief. This is not broken, Sarara, let me tell you, this is the epiphyseal line, which is a layer of cartilage used for growth in long bones. Its existence means that the bones can continue to grow, and Appa can still if I can grow taller. As he spoke, his voice became slower and slower. Gretel turned his head and looked at Appa up and down with strange eyes. Creation is truly miraculous. Appa, who was already an adult stag, could actually grow even longer when he transformed into a human form. Although the human form he transformed into was that of a child, however, this form is not fixed and can still continue to grow. It is really amazing. Elder, can Appa really continue to grow taller in the future? Can he grow into a boy, a young man, and an adult? Gretel turned to Elder Fahim and asked sincerely. Does this kind of growth mainly depend on time or the growth of his strength? Will growth in human form help his original form? By the way, can Appakai return to his original form? Appa neither nodded nor shook his head. He looked down at his palms, clenched his fists hard, released them, clenched his fists again, released them again, bent down, and tried to get on all fours. After trying this several times, his little face turned red from suppressing it, but he still failed to change back to his original shape. He was so anxious that he was sweating and raised his head. Abba, Ababa, Abba. Don't worry, Gretel touched the silver-haired little head, and without stopping, he touched 2 more antlers. Although Appa can't speak human language yet, to be precise, he can't pronounce words in a human way, but it doesn't stop him from expressing what he means. From the mental connection, Appa's thoughts clearly came through. You can change back to your original form, but it takes practice, a lot of practice. Boss, I will quickly become proficient in transforming, and I will not delay running with you on my back. Appa is the boss's only mount. Only. You need to adapt to your current form first. Don't rush to practice. Gretel couldn't help but smile, and touched another handful of antlers, from the tender antlers to the smooth silver hair. When you become proficient later, follow me to read, learn magic, and follow Bernard to learn martial arts. If you learn more, you can always save more, and you can advance better, right? Appa was stunned for a moment. Then, her tender little face visibly collapsed, and a bag of tears quickly accumulated in her eyes. Wow! Why still study? Why, I worked so hard to become a human being, but there is one more thing I need to learn. I have to learn magic and martial arts. I am just a silver moon deer. I can walk, sleep, eat grass, eat meat, eat magic crystals, and sharpen my horns. Why do I need to learn so many things? If he was still a silver moon deer, he could cry any way he wanted, and Sarala would just see it as a joke. A deer, an adult stag taller than her elf form, what's so interesting about crying? Look for a fight. However, he has turned into a human form, and he is a small one of 7 or 8 years old. When she started crying, big transparent tears rolled down her cheeks, making her look even more pitiful and cute. Sarala was greatly distressed and immediately knelt down to comfort. If you don't want to learn, you won't learn. What's the point of learning something so troublesome and difficult? Let's eat well, sleep well, eat more monster meat, digest that crystal core, and we can naturally advance. Appa's tears slowly stopped. Looking at Greet looked helpless, with a hint of indulgence in his smile. Look at Elder Fahim. The elder looked at them kindly and did not offer any advice, as if he was saying any choice is fine. Look at Sarara. Sarara has already begun to touch the space bag, most likely looking for Warcraft meat for him to eat. I want to learn. Apa calmed down little by little, raised his fleshy little hand, and wiped away his tears with the back of his hand. Boss, I want to learn to read, learn magic, learn martial arts, I want to work hard to advance, and I want to help the boss. Well, there's no rush. Greet smiled and ruffled his hair. Let's do it step by step. First learn to speak, learn to hold a pen, and learn to read. Before that, Appa, let's complete the inspection first. X-ray examination, the result was good. Apart from the crystal nucleus behind the sternum, the only difference may be that Apa's bone density is much higher than that of normal human children, or even normal humans. The results of the B ultrasound examination were good. The results of the B ultrasound feedback showed that the shape of the internal organs in Apa's body was basically the same as that of human internal organs. CT examination showed good results. EKG, blood pressure, oxygen saturation. Relax. Greet held Apa's small palm and held a lancet in one hand, and comforted him repeatedly. I'm just going to take a drop of blood to see the blood type. Just poke a small amount and get a drop of blood. Don't resist. Apa closed his eyes, tried to breathe evenly, and didn't look at his fingertips. There was a flash of silver light, and the blood collection needle plunged straight down. It was shaken, bent, and a white mark was drawn, and returned in vain. And Apa's delicate and tender fingertips were instantly covered with a hard shell, just like the hard hooves that had stepped on the ice fields and the gobi for many years. Is this good news? Even in human form, Appa's defense is still strong enough, and he has the tendency to instinctively change back to his original form. However, what Gretel needs now is to get over this big trouble and successfully extract a drop of blood. This, Appa, please don't resist. If you continue to resist, we will have to use tranquility or take blood from the brachial vein. The second time I took blood, I encountered resistance again. The third time to draw blood, throw down a local anesthesia spell and then poke. Great, I managed to hit a drop this time. Identify blood, throw it up. Apa's blood type does not belong to any known type. Identify bloodline, and then threw it up, and it did not identify humans, silver moon deer, or other races. This. Apa, open your mouth. Here, I'll use a cotton swab to scrape the inside of your mouth, just one stroke. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Asking for a guaranteed monthly ticket at the beginning of the month. Asking for a guaranteed monthly ticket at the beginning of the month. The cat must at least reach the top 10 on the fantasy monthly vote list. This is related to this month's fixed exposure position. Everyone, please vote hard. Thanks to @ScarlaC for the 5,000 starting coin reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1251. Chapter 1248. The Pink Book. Sarah, listen to my explanation. Book Friends rewarded 25.47 million UN for additional updates. Well. Hold head high. No, it's open your lips, straighten them, stick your tongue to your jaw, do it again, dash. After APA successfully transformed, Gretel had another job, teaching APA how to speak. Although Cyrilla can also teach, and so can Bernard, Gretel is most familiar with the structure of human vocal organs, how to control teeth, tongue, and lips, and how to exhale to produce the syllables of human speech. Of course, research is inevitable during the teaching process. Taking X-rays, CT scans, etc. are commonplace, and the electrocardiogram can't wait to be hung up 24 hours a day. As for drawing blood, it's not that Gretel doesn't want to draw blood, but the current research methods are limited. Elder. Gretel went to Elder Fahim again. APA cell chromosomes, have they been analyzed? Come on, Elder Fahim's head was covered with sweat and his eyes were red. Using an electron microscope to observe chromosomes is really a big project, especially the size of the chromosomes of the silver moon deer, let alone those of fruit flies. These are messy, tangled things that are 100 times more messy than the yarn balls that cats have played with. How many are there? It's so hard to do this job. Moreover, previous research results do not have much reference value. A month ago, the Elder also analyzed APA's chromosomes in silver moon deer state. Although I don't know what the difference is from the current version, but judging from the shape of the chromosomes, it is obvious at a glance that there is still a difference. It can be seen from electron microscope observation that when a monster transforms, its chromosomes will undergo significant changes. It can be seen that when a monster transforms, it is not only a change in power, but also a significant change in the form of life. Gretel could only write the paper with the results that Elder Fahim had studied and imported into the chip. Halfway through writing, he stopped writing and sighed. As for whether the chromosomes will still change after changing shape and then returning to the original shape, this still needs to be studied. APA, when will you be able to transform back into the silver moon deer form? Although you have just transformed into a human form, it will take time to become familiar with the current form, but this has been delayed for too long. Alas, APA couldn't change back to the silver moon deer form, couldn't change back to the silver moon deer form stably, so the unicorn Shiloh could only live in the nearby forest, waiting and waiting. A unicorn that can only neigh and a doll that can't speak human language can't talk together even with the help of a translator. Although Gretel can understand both sides of the conversation, it is impossible for him to translate for them indefinitely. Appa, if you don't quickly become proficient in transforming back and forth in both directions, the girl you like will run away. The research and education on APA is obviously a long-term project, and the research on Warcraft chromosomes is still a purely basic subject direction with no idea of what use it can be put to. Due to the existing conditions, the research on APA was temporarily stuck in a bottleneck. Gretel could only divert his energy to another research work that was interrupted before rescuing APA. Blood magic. The spell models separated from clone technique and regeneration technique have been thoroughly tested. After various permutations and calculations, Greet selected the 5 most possible core configurations. Coupled with various configurations such as the peripheral locking part, power part, and excitation part, write and draw to create 5 possible magics. After Elder Fahim's appraisal, it was confirmed that the structure of these spells was correct. At least there would be no danger of magic backflow, hedging, or explosion. Gretel rolled up his sleeves and started testing. Experiment Rabbit number 1, Draw Blood. Experiment Rabbit number 1, Hematopoietic Magic number 1, Release. Electrocardiogram monitoring, there is no significant change in the electrocardiogram. Blood pressure monitoring, there is no significant increase in blood pressure. The blood cell count has not changed. How is it going? Ashu Edge, who was helping him feed rabbits, catch rabbits, and shave rabbit legs, couldn't wait to put his head over. Did it succeed? Didn't it succeed? Why didn't it succeed? Sister, don't worry. Greet spread her fingers, placed a void on her face, and pushed it out. This is the first spell, the first rabbit. You have to try at least one set of each spell. Come on, catch another rabbit. For the first spell, Greet made 20 rabbits in one go. 10 rabbits, half male and half female. After drawing blood, release the blood replenishing spell. The other 10 rabbits, also half male and half female, draw blood, release the blood replenishing spell, and inject physiological saline intravenously. The second spell is still 10 pure blood replenishing and 10 intravenous drips. The third. The fourth. 5 groups of 100 rabbits were completed in one go. The light screens for electrocardiogram monitoring and blood pressure monitoring were arranged in a row, looking like the light curtain wall on the bridge. If Gretel hadn't already had a meditation core that could fully automatically receive and analyze, just reading the electrocardiograms of these 100 rabbits would tire him to death. However, 5 groups of 100 rabbits were tested by Gretel 1 hour after the spell was cast. There was no significant change in blood volume or blood cell content. In other words, his first experiment, 5 spell models, all failed. Why didn't it succeed? Gretel frowned, thinking hard. Think for a while, bite the feather of the endless ink pen for a while, and start writing. Reason for failure 1, hematopoietic stem cells require time to differentiate, and 1 hour is not enough. It remains to be observed. Reason for failure 2, the magic power failed to penetrate deep into the bone marrow and reach the location of hematopoietic stem cells. Reason for failure 3, the magic power did not lock the hematopoietic stem cells correctly. Reason for failure 4, lack of conditions for hematopoietic stem cell differentiation. Sister Uge, please help me raise these rabbits. Feed and water them well. If anyone is sick, be sure to record it. Okay. How long will it take to raise? Good question. It seems that it takes 3 days for human hematopoietic stem cells to develop into mature red blood cells. Rabbits have a fast metabolism, so the development speed of hematopoietic stem cells may also be faster, right? 3 days first? 72 hours. If it exceeds 72 hours, the rabbit's own hematopoietic stem cells and red blood cells that have not been affected by the spell have also been added to the circulation system, and the experimental data will be inaccurate. No problem. Leave it to me. It's just raising rabbits, it's the easiest. Ashmoon Song is gearing up. Gretel raised a smile to her and continued writing. To determine the cause of the failure, you can change the experimental conditions and try again. Gretel stayed in the rabbit room for 24 hours. 2 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, and 24 hours after the test, the heart rate and blood pressure were continuously observed to confirm that there were no significant changes. Continuously collect blood and perform blood cell counts to determine that there is no significant increase in the number of blood cells. 100 rabbits, 5 rounds of blood collection, and 5 blood cell counts made Greet so tired that he felt like vomiting as soon as he saw the microscope. Why should I count the smears one by one and under the microscope? Why don't I take some time to develop a counting magic so that I can count the number of blood cells in one shot? Gretel was about to cry but had no tears left. However, if I didn't work hard before, I wouldn't be able to hold it out temporarily. If he wanted to quickly develop a blood cell counting magic in 2, 3, or 5 or 6 hours, it would be impossible even for him. After finishing the first batch of rabbits, Gretel had a good sleep and then tried to study the blood cell count. Fortunately, this spell is not difficult. With the blood type version, blood potassium, sodium, blood calcium version, blood oxygen saturation and other research background of identify bloodline change, he meditated in the emerald dream for 3 days, and finally the spell was pinched out. After pinching, instead of drawing the blood of the second batch of rabbits, think hard first. Is there any way to first use a more intuitive way to confirm that this spell can promote the differentiation of hematopoietic stem cells? In vitro experiments. Where can I find hematopoietic stem cells? Use lancets, one by one, to poke into the rabbit's pelvis to extract bone marrow? Gretel couldn't help but shudder when he thought about the workload and the screaming, kicking, and biting rabbits. Although he is now a level 13 mage and can kill a large number of rabbits with a wave of his hand using tranquility or hypnosis, but the thought of extracting the bone marrow of hundreds of rabbits. Shake his head hard. Let's try another method, a more direct method. Although there are hematopoietic stem cells in red bone marrow, the red bone marrow is not entirely hematopoietic stem cells. Correct. Cord blood. Umbilical cord blood also contains hematopoietic stem cells, and there are a lot of them. Umbilical cord blood is also relatively easy to collect. Rabbits have strong reproductive capabilities. Just take away the umbilical cord when they give birth to rabbits. Gretel was greatly excited. He ran to the rabbit room and walked around once, twice, 3 times. Sister Uge, why don't these rabbits give birth to little rabbits? Didn't you say that you should separate the male and female rabbits first to prevent them from giving birth? Ashuej gave him a very strange look. Rabbits will have a litter every month or 2, and they will have a litter every month or 2. If they are allowed to give birth at will, the entire camp will be eaten by them. Then, how many pairs are taken out first and let them give birth? Sister Uge, a female rabbit, how many little rabbits can she give birth to in one litter? 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't even know if you are a natural priest. Ashmoonsong shook her head and went to catch the rabbits, close their cages, and move them to another room. Gretel went to see the rabbit once a day, hoping that the female rabbit would get pregnant and give birth immediately. Why haven't you given birth yet? You haven't given birth yet? What, you haven't reached the estrus period yet? By the way, it's from the pink book. Where is my pink book? What happened when I left Nevis? Did you bring it? He rushed back to his residence, buried himself in a book box, and searched desperately. When Sarala came in, she saw 2 long legs and an upper body buried in a book box. Greet, what are you doing? What are you looking for? What is not in the space bag and you need to look for it like this? I'm looking for the pink book. Sarala, please listen to my explanation. I'm not using it for myself. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Asking for a guaranteed monthly ticket at the beginning of the month. Asking for a guaranteed monthly ticket at the beginning of the month. The cat must at least reach the top 10 on the fantasy monthly vote list. Now there are still more than 20 votes away from the top 10, this is related to the fixed exposure position this month. Everyone, please vote hard. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1252. The pink book is really not for you to play with. It's really not for you to play with. This is not fun. No, don't face people. Gretel looked helpless and followed Sirara, following her step by step. Sirara got the book. The cover was wrapped in black leather, and the words "The Pink Book" were written neatly on the spine. It is bound as a whole and tries to pretend that it is a normal spell book or a normal notebook. However, when the inner pages are opened, a new world opens up. Sarala refused to let go, and Gretel could only follow her, waiting for an opportunity to snatch the book back, and make sure that she didn't remember it, and if she did, she wouldn't release it. Even if she did, don't do it to her. With people. Fortunately, Sarala is naughty and doesn't hold back on big things. After Greet's earnest persuasion, she concentrated slightly, looked back and smiled mischievously, then spread her fingers and pointed at the rabbit cage. Ur. Then, Gretel hurriedly raised a cloud of white mist, blocking the gap between Sarala and the rabbit cage, pulling her and turning around to leave. Sarah, we don't have to watch the rabbit stuff, right? Although rabbits get pregnant quickly, it still takes about a month from pregnancy to delivery. The Pink Book is a product of the Control series, not the Necromancy series, and it does not have the power to force life and death. Therefore, Greet still faces two choices. Or, continue to focus your research on rabbit bone marrow and wait for these rabbits to become pregnant and give birth. Or, please ask the elves to go all over the forest to catch pregnant rabbits. Catch a pregnant rabbit? Absolutely, Ashuedge refused without even thinking and resolutely rejected Gretel. Catch rabbits, mice, or other animals to raise for you to draw blood, cast spells, or even cut into pieces. We can tolerate these things, barely, after all, we are all beneficiaries. But pregnant animals. Her heroic eyebrows were raised high, and her short green hair was pointed upward, almost lifting the flower crown on her hair an inch high. Don't disturb pregnant females and don't kill cubs. This is the final bottom line for us guardians of nature. If we even catch pregnant rabbits, we will naturally turn our backs completely and no longer look after us. By the end of the sentence, he was very serious. Gretel was almost startled by her, muttered, and lowered his head. If you don't catch it, you won't catch it, then I'll study other things first. Anyway, it will only waste a few months. It's not like those rabbits that are locked up can't give birth. As for using mice instead of rabbits, do you hope that mice are smaller and can give birth to a litter faster? Haha, it doesn't exist. It takes 30 days from pregnancy to birth in rabbits, and more than 20 days in mice. There is no essential difference. In comparison, rabbits are much larger than mice, their umbilical cords are also larger, and more umbilical cord blood is taken out of the umbilical cords. How long does it take for a mouse that is less than the size of a palm to get enough for experiments? Of cord blood. Gretel calmly drew blood and conducted experiments slowly. He is not in a hurry anyway. For basic research of this level, 10 or 8 years is normal, and 1 or 2 years is very fast. Senior experts, such as Professor Chenzu, who studied arsenic trioxide, arsenic, to treat leukemia, how long did it take from discovering that arsenic could be used to determining a treatment plan? The research process is measured in 10 years. Come up with results in a month or two. This mentality is too impetuous. Before, he studied blood test magic, studied the magic of measuring blood potassium, blood sodium, and blood calcium, and researched vaccines, which research has he not been doing for many years. Moreover, there were a large group of mage apprentices and magicians who helped him and conducted experiments for him. All he had to do was control the overall situation and propose experimental plans. Now, he is the only one in the elf forest, so the research speed will definitely slow down, so just do it slowly. Anyway, he still has so many spells to learn, so many foundations to lay, and he still has to watch APA become familiar with the changes in human form and deer form, and he also has to teach APA to read and write. The elves were not in a hurry, so why was he in a hurry? Greet calmed down and reallocated his time. He had to read the book the elder gave him. There were so many space-based spells, runes, and coordinate analysis. He had to learn them one by one. Only when he understood them all could he progress to the Mage's Mansion. Mage Mansion has been learned, followed by Delayed Burst Fireball and Force Field Prison. Of course, Amber Sarcophagus is also a very interesting spell, which is very suitable for temporarily storing seriously injured and sick patients until they are rescued. The projection technique of the illusion department can create an illusory clone that can speak and cast spells. This spell must be learned. In the future, you can place a statue in the hospital. When encountering a rescue, you can directly use the statue as the coordinates to open the phantom clone, so you don't have to rush there. Of course, activating plants, enlightening trees, and limited wishing are also at the top of the list to be learned. Just learning these spells takes up at least half of his day. If Gretel is willing, he can fill up 24 hours a day, except for eating and sleeping. Doing basic research, casting spells on rabbits, and observing rabbits also take up a full 4 hours of working time. Next, I have to teach Appa. On the 7th day of his transformation into a human, Appa finally found his senses and successfully transformed into a silver moon deer again. That night, he ran into the forest with the unicorn Shiloh and didn't know what they talked about or what they did. Anyway, the next morning, the older unicorn led Hero to come to Gretel. Hero is the most beautiful flower in our tribe. She is willing to be with Appa and follow Appa across thousands of mountains and rivers. We can only give her blessings. The older unicorn spoke slowly, looking back at Shiloh's somewhat messy fur from time to time. The young unicorn moved restlessly, snorted, and occasionally scratched the ground. In the distant forest, the figures of young unicorns were looming, and their neighing sounds were heard one after another. It was obvious that some male unicorns were still unconvinced, but the females had already made their choice, and they could not say anything. However, Shiloh is too young and has never left the torrent forest. She cannot even protect herself in front of powerful monsters. The older unicorn knelt down and looked at Gretel seriously. "Dear Nature Walker, we ask that you, as the master of Appa and the leader of the group, can give us a promise." Appa was so quick. Gretel secretly sighed. In such a short time, only one night after turning back into a silver moon deer, he had already settled the matter. Compare this to another member of the team, Mr. Bernard, who has not even found his other half. "What do you want me to promise?" Greet nodded and said solemnly. The older unicorn blew out a burst of hot air from his nostrils, lowered his head, and greeted Gretel. "Dear Nature Walker, we hope that you will regard Shiloh as a member of your team. Take care of her, protect her, and when danger comes, don't let her face it alone." "Sure." Gretel nodded without thinking. Hey, a unicorn, even if it wasn't for Appa's sake, he wouldn't just watch something happen to Shiloh, right? The older unicorn breathed a sigh of relief. It hesitated for a moment, then lowered its head again, its horn almost touching the ground. "Dear Nature Walker, we have another presumptuous request. In order to allow Shiloh to steadily improve in strength after leaving the forest and keep up with Appa's footsteps, we hope that you have any useless progress. Can you give her some of the top-level resources? This. Don't worry about scarcity but inequality. To be honest, there has never been a shortage of resources here at Greed. However, everyone who wants to be allocated resources has also shouldered their own responsibilities. If Shiloh is just Appa's spouse, then what she can get will only be part of what Appa transferred to her." Gretel hesitated. Before I could organize my words, a laughing voice jumped beside me. "This is conditional." Gretel turned around, smiled at Cyrilla, and nodded to signal her to respond. Cyrilla took half a step forward and stood beside Gretel. "I like Hero very much. She is so beautiful. Well, if Hero is willing to let me ride it, I will definitely keep it as my mount." You are the silver dragon Cyrilla. Are unicorns afraid of your pressure?" Greet wanted to complain, but at least he still had sense, so he swallowed these words and stared at the unicorns. Shiloh timidly raised her head and looked at Cyrilla, wanting to move forward but then holding back. Even if the other party didn't show his true identity, this faint pressure still made her instinctively tremble. However, the beautiful silver dragon girl smiled and stretched out a palm towards Shiloh. The palm was spread out, and the aroma of a red fruit filled the air. Shiro sniffed and cautiously took a step forward, then another step, and another step. He stuck out his tongue, rolled the fruit into his mouth, and narrowed his eyes comfortably. "Then I'll take it as your promise," Cyrilla shouted happily. He jumped onto Hero's back, raised his arms, and pointed forward. "Take me for a run." "Oh ho! Ta 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 ta, tap ta ta ta." The female unicorn with pure white fur ran briskly, and soon turned into a silvery white lightning, which shot into the depths of the forest and disappeared. "It seems that she likes Cyrilla very much." Gretel raised a smile and looked at the older unicorn. "Don't worry, with Cyrilla here, you won't be short of anything, whether it's protection or resources." The unicorns quietly retreated. On the ancient tree, the spiritual birds were singing happily. Elder Fahim raised his arm to catch a messenger swift, and smiled at Elder Carrion. "Get him another unicorn to go with." That silver moon deer acted in a hurry. "There are many better unicorns than Shiloh on Evergem Island. Speaking of which, when will you take the little guy back to Evergem Island? He himself didn't ask to go. Now he's learning magic and studying medical skills. It's very leisurely. He's not in a hurry. Aren't you in a hurry? From Yangju Island, there's another letter urging you. Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Asking for a guaranteed monthly ticket at the beginning of the month. Asking for a guaranteed monthly ticket at the beginning of the month. The cat must at least reach the top 10 on the fantasy monthly vote list. Now there are still more than 20 votes away from the top 10, this is related to the fixed exposure position this month. Everyone, please vote hard. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1253. With the letters going back and forth between the Elf Forest and Yangju Island, the side of Yangju Island, or the royal court and the Presbyterian Church, paid more and more attention to Gretel. Find a way to extinguish the flames of the elf secret realm and save the children of the forest. The child who found a way to treat the seriously injured elves and bring back a new life to dozens of elves sealed in the ancient trees. A child who has already advanced to level 13 before he was 30 years old. He advanced twice and received blessings from nature and gifts from the world. Such a young man, even if he is a pure human, the elves are willing to become friends with him and accept him to visit and study on Yangju Island. Even if an elf is willing to marry him, the royal court and the elders will be happy to see it happen. What? Has his identity and bloodline been confirmed? His mother, a girl from the gemstone flower family, is still meditating to appease the ancient tree? Then I must take it over. Take it over and let their mother and son meet, so that this child who lost his parents at a very young age can feel the warmth of home again. Let this young genius receive the orthodox education of elves, learn elf magic, and understand the depth and greatness of elf civilization. It is said that this child has finally learned the art of transformation, but he is still unable to run freely in the form of a leopard? Oh, this won't work. The more qualified a child is, the better he should be taught, so as not to delay him. During this period, from the elf forest to Everlasting Island, swifts, albatrosses, terns, all kinds of birds domesticated by the elf elders to deliver messages kept flying over the mountains and across the ocean, bringing news to their owners. Information. However, when it comes to the last step, that is, taking Gretel back to Yangmei Island, it always gets stuck. Going to Evermeet Island? When, Greet looked up from the magic book in a daze and shook his head vigorously. Taking 2 deep breaths, he condensed a ball of cold air with his backhand and pressed it on his forehead to make himself more awake. Don't be in a hurry. Didn't you agree before? Wait for the results of my project to be researched. It will take a long time for this project to come to fruition. Elder Masray, who came to see him, smiled kindly and opened his mouth to test. As an elder who majors in earth magic, he came to the elf secret realm mainly to provide defense power for everyone. He is quite idle at the moment. When can I return to Evergem Island? When can I pack up little Gretel and take her back? Such a young genius must have an elder to take him with him. He cannot be allowed to cross the forest, cross the plateau, and find a way to find a boat to cross the ocean. What if he sees something on the road that inspires him to do research and stays there and never leaves? What if he meets some strong man on the road and is detained? The most common thing is that the sea is rough and rough. What if he can't find a suitable boat and can't reach Yangju Island smoothly? The sea is different from the land. Without knowing the course, not being able to withstand the strong winds and huge waves, not being able to recognize the stars, not knowing how to avoid those powerful sea voyagers, there is almost no possibility of reaching Yangju Island. Little Greet, I heard that what you need are some rabbits, some pregnant rabbits, Elder Masray asked with a smile. It takes more than half a month for a rabbit to get pregnant and give birth. Are you just going to wait like this? So what if you don't wait? Gretel shrugged, put down his pen, and stretched hard. Anyway, I still have so many things to do. After more than half a month, the female rabbits will give birth, and I need their umbilical cord blood. After this batch is finished, there will be another batch every 5 days, and the cycle will continue. The cord blood collected is enough for me. Elder Masray was speechless for a moment. After a pause, he tentatively asked. You don't have to raise rabbits here, little Greet, don't you consider returning to Evermeet Island? There are more magic facilities there, and it's more convenient to do research and learn magic. There's no rush. Gretel stood up, moved left and right, and stretched his spine. Now I'll put my research on hold. When I get to Yangju Island, I'll choose a place, catch rabbits, and raise rabbits. I don't know if anyone will help me raise rabbits by then. He shrugged his shoulders vigorously. I'd better finish my research here before leaving. Elder Masray was speechless. Basically, the elves on Evermeet Island don't know Gretel. It's really troublesome to find someone to help him, catch rabbits, and raise rabbits. When the time comes, will he spend a few years slowly persuading a group of elves to help him? Or do they, the elders, forcefully assign disciples and disciples to come and do the work? Or maybe Gretel's research is not progressing smoothly and the progress is not smooth, so why not just leave Evermeet Island? After all, in the human world, the little guy needs status, and people to help with work. I guess there will be a lot of them just by saying hello. Elder Masray retreated and decided to go back and think about it and discuss this issue with other elders. A few days later, Elder Carrion came over again. The elder did not directly mention the matter of returning to Everlasting Island, but first learned about Gretel's learning progress and shared some experience on the use of teleportation technique and advanced teleportation technique. After Greet finished taking notes with a grateful face, he smiled and said, Little Greet, when do you plan to go to Yangju Island? Your mother and your mother's relatives are all waiting for you there. My mother has finished her meditation? Has she come out of the ancient tree? Greet looked up. Elder Carrion paused. Not yet. There have been some changes in the Well of Eternity recently, and the ancient trees have also changed accordingly. Your mother may need to invest more energy and time in the ancient trees. So what did I do there? Shout into the bark of a tree? You probably won't agree to splitting the ancient tree to take out the mother. Gretel cursed, and the smile on his face froze. He raised his hand and rubbed his cheek before returning to his smile. Then let's wait a little longer? I'll wait until I finish this research. Hey. It's just a few cages of rabbits, you can take them with you, Elder Colin tried hard to convince him. The space on the ancient tree ship is very big. It's not a problem to install a few more cages of rabbits. If you are afraid that no one will do anything, I will ask Ashu Edge to go back with you and assign a few disciples to help you. Live. It's better, don't do it. Gretel thought for a moment and shook his head firmly. I'm still waiting for my senior brother to send me an electron microscope. I don't know what's going on with the research and development over there. What if I go to Yangju Island again after the things are sent over there? Should I ask my senior brother to fly there? Will Yangju Island deliver the goods to me? Although senior brother may not object to coming to the elves to open his eyes, but without a map or a permit, there might be a bigger mystery lock than Igor's mystery lock around the elves' island. Why bother when a little thing turns into a big trouble? Elder Carrion retreated. He also did not welcome the human archmage and ran to Yangju Island if he had something to do. In fact, Yangju Island does not welcome any human beings, especially the kind of humans who come to Yangju Island just because they are strong and don't know the heights of the world. Yes, I'm talking about the lightning mage who broke into Yangju Island 100 years ago. Of course, Gretel is half elf blood and is recognized by many elf elders. That is another matter. However, what should we do if Archmage Baebo is not allowed to land on the island and Gretel is waiting for the electron microscope? Several elders got together to discuss, but before they could decide whether to allow Archmage Baebo to land on the island, another urgent letter came from Yangju Island. The news in this urgent letter even alarmed Elder Melancilla, who was buried in the secret realm and busy planting flowers and trees every day. The elders held a short meeting, immediately came to the forward post, and pulled Greet out of the research institute. Little Greet, if it's convenient, you'd better follow us to Yangju Island as soon as possible. There are some changes on Yangju Island, and we need to gather as much strength as possible. What? Greet looked at the legendary elders with his blank eyes, which had two dark circles under the eyes. There was no news before, but after a few months of normal life, she suddenly revealed something big. Elder Melancilla had already raised her hand, and the garland on her wrist flew out of thin air, fell to the ground, and turned into a small tree. The small tree took root, grew, bent, and stretched close to the ground. Soon, the familiar elf alchemy ship appeared in front of us. The elves who were rescued from the ancient tree and rested at the outpost began to walk to the elf ship carrying various belongings. Elder Melancilla looked serious. The magic energy, the mystery lock, and everything on the island of eternity come from the well of eternity. But the well of eternity is contaminated. She turned towards the direction of the elf secret realm and raised her round chin slightly. Gretel understood. Oh, strong radiation will cause all kinds of problems. So how did you move a reactor that was about to explode, or had already exploded, to Elf Island? So, it is necessary to use the ancient trees branched from the world tree to seal, filter and guide the power of the well of eternity, and then let the elves appease and guide the ancient trees. Before, little Gretel, your mother, was responsible for appeasing the ancient trees. Responsibilities. Gretel took a deep breath and nodded vigorously. Elder Melancilla patted him on the shoulder. Your previous discovery of using lead and borax to extinguish the flames of the well of eternity solved a big problem for us. However, after too much lead and borax were thrown into the well of eternity, a new problem arose. A wry smile appeared on her face. Elder Fahim sighed and took a step forward. The well of eternity is almost extinguished. Along with the charm, there are loopholes beginning to appear. It is becoming more and more difficult for the elven warriors to fight against foreign enemies. Moreover, the ancient trees that have lost their energy have begun to go berserk. Yangju Island urgently recalls its people, especially us legendary elders. Little Gretel, we ask you to go back with us, are you willing? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, ask for all kinds of. Asking for a guaranteed monthly ticket at the beginning of the month. Asking for a guaranteed monthly ticket at the beginning of the month. The cat must at least reach the top 10 on the fantasy monthly vote list. Now there are still more than 20 votes away from the top 10, this is related to the fixed exposure position this month. Everyone, please vote hard. Thanks to the Strong Sea Monster for the 4,500 starting coins reward.